the Bruins slipped to the 5th lottery position versus the 4th lottery position. And that's all because the Bruins took home a point in their final Game 82, where they went to overtime with New Jersey, I think.
Yeah.
And
Correct.
so now they sit there in the 5th lottery position. They had the 4th. The difference is 1 percentage point. Their percentage chance to land the number 1 pick dropped from 9.5 to 8.5. So it cost them 1% for the first overall pick. They draw ping pong balls. They draw a lottery position for position 1, 2, and 3. So it's not just the first position. Kevin Majori, do you know, are the odds to land 2 and 3 also 8.5%? Is that the way that it works? And
I don't know exactly. I do have, I will send, I saw it earlier, forgot to send it, a graphic of the Bruins odds across the board.
Can you just read it to me?
I got to find it first.
Okay.
But
so like
their highest odd number is 6th at 44%, I believe it is.
So they're
I don't know how the math
course
works,
it is.
but for some reason, 6 is their highest chance.
Send me that.
I will send the graph along, and it'll be there.
Their best,
Because they're the Bruins, that's why.
their best chance is to decrease their odds.
Yeah.
That's usually how it works with them, yeah.
So this is where we want to begin with Christopher Gasper of the Boston Globe. He joins us remotely, and he's brought to you, as usual, by Premier Basement Waterproofing. Our guys at Premier wish all the runners the best of luck on Monday, as well as our green team as they look to raise Banner 19. Remember, when it comes to waterproofing, Premier is the only team to have banner year after banner year. To schedule with Grace, call 844-LIVE-DRY or visit premierbasement.net. What is it then?
Game over for water.
Gasper, how you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
Okay.
What's up, Chris?
Thoughts on the Bruins and how they handled Game 82 and where that leaves them today?
Yeah, I hated the way they handled Game 82, and not just because of the result at the end of the day, but just I know we've had this argument so many times over tanking in sports, and I understand where you guys are coming from overall, but I will say it does have its place. And when I say tanking, I don't mean going out there and making a mockery of the game, like, putting the puck in your own net, intentionally whiffing on checks. I don't mean stuff like that. I mean, basically, just put every prospect you've drafted out there. That would be enough for you to lose the game. What I don't want to see is for you to put David Pastrnak out there and he ends up playing a team high 21 minutes and scoring a goal that impacts your ability to get the draft pick that you need and you want. And I look at it too and say, okay, so, Elias Lindholm's out there too. And Nikita Zorov's out there. So what are you trying to accomplish in that final game? Imagine if any of those guys got hurt. And I know they didn't. Morgan Geekie, who's going to be an RFA, who I think they want to bring back, who had a great season. Imagine if he gets hurt in that final game. So when I look at the Bruins, their situation to me is parallel to the Patriots and what happened to the Patriots in their last game. Both times, both cases, that was the time to tank. That was the time to lose. That was the time to put out there. And the Patriots kind of tried. Look, Drake May played like 3 snaps, and they sat Christian Gonzalez and Hunter Henry. But those were the times where you needed to find a way to give your team the best chance to lose, to have the best chance to eventually win something that matters.
Kevin just sent us these odds real quick.
Yeah.
NHL so hasn't announced for draft lottery, but I'm going to try to read this in real time. So they have an 8.5% chance of getting pick number 1, an 8.6% chance of pick number 2, a 0.3% chance of pick number 3, a 24% chance of pick number 5, which is where they are, a 44% chance of pick number 6.
It's like a magnet.
And a 14% chance of pick number 7. If I read Philly in 4th place, Chris, they're only 1 percentage point in each area above the Bruins. So is it worth, I'm just asking, because I would have sat everybody too.
Ask it.
I mean, because I agree, there is a time to tank. But is it worth that 1 percentage point to sit everybody like that and tank a game?
I mean, for me, I think it is. If it's the difference between, and I have to go back and how do the odds change for being in the top 5? Based on if they had lost versus if winning it. Like for me, it's the idea of the top 5 pick. It's not so much the number 1 overall, which would be great to get, but it's making sure that you don't fall outside of the top 5. And I'm not going to pretend to know what the depth and quality of this draft is, but I think the idea is you want to have that top 5 pick. And when you look at what happened with the Patriots, I mean, would the Patriots be better off today with the number 1 overall pick and a loss, or where they're at now with 4 and missing out potentially on Abdul Carter and Travis Hunter?
That first
and
thing.
maybe drafting a short arm tackle.
Do you think that the Patriots organization, wanted to lose that game?
Yes.
Well, I think he's right. I mean, I do. I think he's right. He raises a good point, though, that a lot of times you get to the end of the season.
Should they have sat Milton in the middle of that game? I mean, so,
Yes.
So what should they have done? Playing Milton, we all would have said going into the game is a way to lose this game.
Right.
I mean, who knew that he was going to play
I can give you
that
some
way?
stuff. I can give you some stuff they did that I didn't agree with.
Go ahead.
At the end there. And again, I'll tell you, they tried to a degree, right? Gonzalez had a concussion. He set out Hunter Henry. But you still played your starting wide receivers. Demario Douglas, Kayshon Boutte had 7 catches for 117 and a touchdown in that game. Kayshon Boutte played 70% of the snaps. Javon Baker should have played 95% of the snaps. That's what I mean. Yeah. And by the way, that's not just a commentary on tanking. That is, let's see what he has. How much can he benefit from this? And he did play, a good amount in that game. Baker did, but still, your starting wide receivers were out there, for 75% of the snaps for Douglas and 70% for Boutte. Austin Hooper played 67% of the snaps. You had Jaheim Bell and Jack Westover, 2 young guys. I don't know if they have any potential, but Austin Hooper contributed in that game. He was tied with this next guy as the second leading receiver in the game. Antonio Gibson. Yes, Ramondre Stevenson dressed but didn't play, but Antonio Gibson was a good player for them all year long. Played 66% of the snaps. And here's this one that kills me. So Kyle Duggar was questionable for the game with an ankle and a quadriceps and really struggled all year long in terms of trying to overcome injuries. He played 52% of the snaps. Marte Mapu played 11% of the snaps in that game. So there was other stuff they could have done. And I know there's going to be some Patriots fans who argue, look, the Bills with McDermott, no matter what you did, they just weren't going to give it to you because they didn't want you to get the number 1 overall pick. And I respect that. And you know what? You might be right. But there was more that could have been done by the Patriots to ensure the result that they were looking for.
And I think there's a glaring obvious one, too. So some of those defensive players are giving their all because I think they like the coach. Had you fired Gerard Mayo, which they knew they were going to do anyway, before that game, I think you get full on oh, the hell with this. Let's just half-ass it. So
that's a good point. I mean, if you're right, Murray. I mean, they obviously knew at that point they were going to fire him. It wasn't the last game dictated it. So if you had already gone down that road, then you're absolutely right. Yeah. But I just look at the Bruins thing and look, maybe it's not as big a deal in the end.
Oh, no, they'll F it up.
Yeah, but to me, I mean, that was just so Bruins to get that point. And you just knew the Flyers were not going to win that final game against the Sabres, even though they mounted a more spirited comeback than, frankly, I would have if I were them.
Yeah, they were down 4-1. They were down 4-1 going into the third, and they almost pulled it out.
Right. No,
I know.
Yeah,
I
they
know.
scored an early goal in the third period. They did. They fought back.
They gave themselves perfect cover in the conversation.
So I agree. I mean, I'm anti-tanking, but there is an obvious game 82, and you're sitting there with the first pick. Okay, lose it. I do think they tried. They just didn't try hard enough. And who knew what Milton was doing? And so, it just would have been interesting. Milton halfway through the game, ripping it up. They yank him? For who? Brissett?
Yeah,
Brissett.
Yeah, we wanted to see what he could do.
They dressed 3 quarterbacks that day.
And I mean, Brissett's going to want to win too. He's in a mindset. I don't know. That was just a tough spot. Chris, you also had some interesting thoughts on the Charlie Jacobs interview in the Globe.
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, I'll start with this. I applaud any owner anytime they go on the record for an interview of this length. So I'll start there. Good on Charlie Jacobs to make himself available. And I'm happy it was with the Globe and my colleague, Jim McBride. But I personally found some whoppers in this one. I mean, first of all, let's just start with the statement the statement he put out to the fans saying accountability and expectations are higher than ever. That's certainly not how it seems. And then he says to Jim, he doesn't understand why people are calling for the heads of Cam Neely and Don Sweeney. Also says he takes criticism of those guys personally, which is not really what you're looking for in someone who's running your business. But then he absolutely buries Jim Montgomery, who, oh, by the way, is in the playoffs. And with the whole, and I'm just going to go to this. I'm going to cut to the chase on this. I find the whole training camp narrative that Neely and Charlie Jacobs are spinning to be pathetic. It is in my 20 years covering Boston sports, it is among the top 2 most pathetic excuses I've ever heard. That you can't overcome what happened in training camp and that because training camp may have been disjointed, which, by the way, wasn't, all on Jim Montgomery. If you had done a better job with Jeremy Swayman in a contract negotiation that you willingly sacrificed leverage on the moment you traded Linus Ullmark without having Swayman under contract, then maybe training camp wouldn't have been such a cluster. But if training camp was the issue and it was all so unfixable and the die was cast because of what happened in training camp, then how do you explain what Jim Montgomery did in St. Louis, turning that team around on the fly during the season? And you have, Charlie Jacobs saying of Montgomery and what happened in training camp and his overall sort of coaching mean at that point. It was just chaos. Monty didn't necessarily have any answers. Well, I got news for you. Sacco didn't have any answers either. No coach was going to have the answers for this team this year, given the composition of the roster, some of the bad injury luck, Charlie McAvoy and the Four Nations, and what they were working with. There was no coach that was going to have the answer. So the whole training camp thing to me is just so weak. And to me is totally at odds with what he says in his statement where he says accountability is at an all-time high. This seems like the total opposite.
So true. Even by their standards, it was egregious.
Yeah, and it's not just about what they said; it's about what they did. They're going to sit there and say that the early part of the season in training camp, ruined their season. First of all, we all know that's a lie. Okay, it got them off to a bad start. So what? You just quit after 10 games? Secondly, if that's true, then what did you rip the roster apart for at the deadline? If you thought it was training camp and you were going to go in with the same group next year, you'd been fine. Seriously, it's got nothing to do with training camp. You ripped apart the roster. You obviously thought your team sucked, so don't pin it on training camp.
Can I get one more here before you go to break too?
Yeah.
This one, obviously, and I don't blame Charlie Jacobs for this one. I feel like this was a talking point that was given him by someone in PR or someone in hockey operations. But when he was asked about the drafting under Sweeney, and he came up with the second round picks that have played 100 games, like why is that a measuring stick? 100 games in the NHL, and they drafted 8 second rounders since 2015, and 5 have already played at least 100 games. And it's Brandon Carlo, Jeremy Lauzon, Ryan Lindgren, Jack Studnicka, Mason Lohrei, who I actually really like, and Matty Patro, who I think you can still have some hope for.
Jack Studnicka's on that list?
And
Yes, Jack Studnicka is on that
blows.
list.
Yeah, and Chris,
Yes.
you know why he mentioned the second round picks? Because they didn't have any first rounders.
Well,
that's
yes,
why.
Exactly, and that's what he's saying in the story. But again, I always say this because it's true. Hockey's my weakest sport. I'm not Mr. Hockey. But is there a Rupe Hintz or Sebastian Aho in that group? And oh, by the way, do you know both of those guys went in the second round of the 2015 draft?
Oh, whoops.
Yeah. Sweeney's Waterloo 2015 draft. So if you had a Sebastian Aho or Rupe Hintz, then you could brag about this. But this list of guys, I mean, Carlo's good. He's a top 4D. But there's no all-stars here. And a lot of these guys are just sweater fillers.
That 2015. It's the N'Keal Harry equivalent where you couldn't fall out of a boat in 2019 and miss a receiver, and you somehow did. In 2015, there were so many players.
Oh, yeah.
You had 3 first-round picks, I think a couple of second. And you couldn't find a player in that mix, and I dismiss Carlo. I think he's grossly overrated.
Well, the other teams all did so well because the Bruins took all the bad ones.
Oh, man.